My boyfriends and my future daughter traveled back in time. She said that in the future, I not only abused her but also cheated on my boyfriend, and later abandoned both husband and child to elope with a wealthy man, so she would rather erase her own existence than let me stay with my boyfriend. Watching her desperately try to set my boyfriend up with other girls, I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. She didn't know that I had already foreseen the future. On the way home from school, my boyfriend and I were dragged into an alley behind the school by a girl. The girl was very pretty, but her mind seemed a bit off. She insisted on calling me and my boyfriend Mom and Dad. After a long silence, I reached out and touched her forehead. "Hey, are you okay?" She impatiently brushed off my hand, then continued to gaze tearfully at her boyfriend. "Dad, I'm telling the truth. I really am your future daughter." Jasper looked at her with a complicated expression and said, "If you're sick, go to the hospital." With that, he grabbed my hand and pulled me toward the exit, but the girl quickly grabbed the hem of his school uniform and blurted out rapidly, "Isn't your phone password Amanda's birthday? Don't you have a notebook dedicated to recording Amanda's preferences? Weren't you planning to confess to Amanda on her birthday?" I froze, quietly glancing at my boyfriend beside me. The usually proud and aloof young man had unwittingly blushed. He shot me a quick glance and said through gritted teeth, "How did you know?" The girl looked rather pleased with herself. "Because I'm your dearest, most beloved daughter. I didn't notice it earlier, but now, as I carefully examine the girl's delicate features, I realize her eyes do bear a striking resemblance to my boyfriend's. A thought occurs to me, and I ask her, "What's your name?" The girl seems reluctant to talk to me and replies dismissively, "Josephine." Hearing that name, my heart suddenly races, because I once imagined that if I really married Jasper in the future, I would name our daughter Josephine, symbolizing unforgettable love, and I hoped that even when Amanda and Jasper's hair turned white, they would still be deeply in love. Watching Josephine's vivid expressions, an indescribable bitterness churned in my heart, so, without thinking, I reached out to touch Josephine's hair, but she dodged my hand. The girl's gaze, as it swept over me, carried unmistakable disgust. "Dad, can you please stop liking Amanda?" Her tone carried genuine resentment. "You treat her so well, yet she's never satisfied. In the future, not only does she abuse me, but she also cheats on you with a wealthy man. When you found out, they even hurt you." Both Jasper and I were stunned. Perhaps because Josephine spoke with such raw emotion, Jasper unconsciously began to empathize with her feelings. He reflexively retorted, "That's impossible. Amanda is a good girl." Josephine looked utterly exasperated. "I'm from the future, so I know exactly what kind of person she is. You're just too infatuated with her right now, which is why you're blindly missing out on your true love." Jasper was about to argue further when a soft voice drifted in from the alley entrance. "Jasper." The moment Jasper recognized the newcomer, his handsome face instantly turned icy. But Josephine's eyes suddenly lit up. "Aunt Megan," following their gaze, I saw Megan standing at the entrance of the alley. She was wearing an oversized school uniform, with thick glasses that nearly covered half her face. When she spoke, not only did she have a strong accent, but her braces would also show. At first glance, everyone would think she was quite unremarkable, yet it was this very Megan who did something unimaginable to others. She once publicly confessed her feelings to Jasper during a school basketball game. At the time, Jasper politely turned her down. But the incident became gossip material for the students of No. 1 high school to pass the time after meals. Everyone secretly mocked her for overestimating herself, calling her ugly and delusional. I thought Megan would give up, but to my surprise, she persisted. From then on, wherever Jasper appeared, she was sure to be there. Later, Jasper grew tired of her clinginess and started giving her the cold shoulder, sometimes even mocking her, yet Megan still didn't leave, continuing to chase after him. At this point, Jasper didn't hide his annoyance either. He grabbed my hand and tried to pull me away. As I passed by Megan, she grabbed my sleeve. Jasper looked at her hand and frowned. Megan immediately let go and carefully took out 2 movie tickets from her backpack. "Jasper, this weekend, can I treat you to a movie? Consider it a thank you for helping me last time." Megan came from a poor family, and coupled with her unique accent, she was often mocked at school as a country bumpkin. At first, it was just verbal attacks, but after confessing her feelings to Jasper, she completely angered a school bully who had a secret crush on him, so the bully started leading her little gang to bully Megan. When Jasper found out, he gave the bully a stern warning, which finally made them back off. Instead of accepting Megan's movie ticket, Jasper raised his eyebrows and retorted, you're almost out of money for tuition. And you're wasting it on movie tickets. Megan's face turned red, and she lowered her head, whispering, "This is money I earned from part-time jobs these past few days." Jasper froze for a moment, uncomfortably averting his gaze as he said stiffly, "No time. This weekend is Amanda's birthday." The moment Jasper led me out of the alley, I glanced back. I saw Josephine stomping her feet resentfully where she stood, while Megan stared fixedly at my hand clasped in Jasper's. In her eyes, I saw thick jealousy, resentment, and even hatred. There's no helping it. As Jasper's childhood sweetheart boyfriend, not only have I spent enough time with him, but my family background and looks are also a perfect match for his, so, I often get used as a tool to humiliate Megan, but I don't like it. It wasn't until I warned them many times that they finally stopped comparing me to Megan. Megan also came to me once. She told me I was just lucky, and if she had my background and looks, she could definitely stand by Jasper's side too. At the time, I was thinking about the solution to a math problem in my head, but I still kept a smile on my face and replied, "Megan, instead of saying all this to me, why not go back and solve a few more problems? Since you can't change your innate conditions, why not work hard to change your future?" Unfortunately, my heartfelt words were misunderstood by Megan as me mocking her poor grades, and from then on, she disliked me even more. As my thoughts returned to the present, we had already arrived at the entrance of my apartment building. Before parting, I asked Jasper what he thought about Josephine's situation. He spoke disdainfully. "Just because her last name is James, does she think she can slander my daughter?" Then, he stole a glance at me, his ears slightly reddening. "Besides, our future daughter would never speak ill of you like that. She'd be well behaved, just like you." My heart felt sweet, and I thought, was I really being too sensitive? Could time travel really exist in this world? Maybe that name was just a coincidence. Perhaps because of the bizarre events of the day, I had a strange dream that night. I dreamed I was sitting at an unfamiliar dressing table, holding a phone and about to send a message. I looked at the message from the contact named Grant, "Come away with me," and the unsent message I had already typed out was, "Okay." I felt all of this was utterly absurd, and when I abruptly raised my head, I caught sight of my reflection in the mirror. The woman's delicate features remained, but deep exhaustion lingered on her face, as if she had just survived a calamity. But before I could clearly see the surroundings, the alarm clock woke me up. Time to get up for school, I sighed, thinking to myself that I must be losing my mind. This weekend, my friends gathered together to celebrate my birthday. After dinner, we're heading to KTV to continue singing, while looking forward to the birthday gift Jasper is going to give me. I can't help but wonder if he'll confess his feelings to me today. But Jasper was clearly distracted today, frequently checking his watch, when it suddenly started thundering and raining outside. He even went out agitatedly to make a phone call, but after returning, he still sat there lost in thought. Half of my initial excitement instantly dissipated. I really wanted to ask him, "Weren't you completely indifferent to Megan's invitation? So why are you acting like this now?" My best friend Sarah noticed the tension between us. She immediately picked a sweet duet and playfully urged us to sing it together. Jasper snapped out of his thoughts and looked at me gently, saying, "May night Jasper have the honor of inviting Princess Anne to sing a song." This was a game we often played as children. Jasper would play the knight who slayed the evil dragon, and I would be the kidnapped princess. Every time he rescued me, he would shamelessly demand a kiss from me. My mood improved slightly, and I nodded. But just as Jasper and I were halfway through singing, someone suddenly burst in. It was Josephine. Seeing her rain-soaked clothes, I felt an inexplicable pang of heartache. Josephine ignored the surprised gazes of everyone and quickly walked up to Jasper, saying, "Dad, you have to go save Megan." Megan, she was caught by her father's debt collectors, and she's in serious danger now. Jasper froze for a second, and before Josephine could react, he immediately dashed out. My mind went blank for a moment, but my feet honestly followed him out. It was pouring rain outside, and I struggled to keep up with Jasper, shouting his name loudly, but he never looked back. Running so fast, so fast. Suddenly, I accidentally fell to the ground, and my calf was lightly grazed by something. Blood dripped into the cold rainwater, quickly dissipating. Gritting my teeth, I stood up, cursing in my heart that Jasper was insane for going out without an umbrella. But how could I have forgotten to bring it? I thought sorrowfully. So I'm just as sick as he is. But when I dragged my injured leg to the movie theater entrance, I realized the only truly sick one was me. I watched Jasper knock all those debt collectors to the ground. I watched him pull Megan into his arms, holding her so tight, so very tight. Finally, I watched as he took off his coat and draped it over both their heads. Then they ran off together. Suddenly, an umbrella stopped above my head. I stared blankly at Josephine standing beside me. The girl's face seemed somewhat indistinct in the night, but her tone was unmistakably sarcastic. "See that? That's my dad's true love. What are you to him?" I didn't pay attention to her words, but instead asked her, "Are you cold?" Josephine froze. After staring at me for a long moment, she forcefully shoved the umbrella into my hands. What a foolish woman. With that, she dashed into the heavy curtain of rain and disappeared. I stood there holding the umbrella, feeling somewhat at a loss. The handle of the umbrella still carried the warmth left by Josephine, but as the cold wind blew, it was about to fade away, just like my mood. Gradually turning icy, at that moment, an unfamiliar car pulled up beside me. The window rolled down, revealing the face of my best friend, Sarah. She said, "Amanda, get in the car." My clothes were just soaked by the rain, and I hesitated a little, worried about dirtying the car seat, but Sarah kept urging me anxiously, so I had no choice but to open the car door and climb in. "Thank you, Sarah." I finally snapped out of my daze from what had just happened. Sarah said irritably, "Why are you thanking me? And if you're going to thank anyone, it should be my uncle. Luckily, he came to pick me up, otherwise I wouldn't have caught up with you." So I quickly thanked the middle-aged man in the driver's seat, only for Sarah to burst into laughter. "You've got it wrong, Amanda. Kevin is our family driver. The one in the passenger seat is my uncle." Confused, I turned to look at the young man in the driver's seat. From this angle, I could only see his tense profile. "Thank you," I said, feeling a bit embarrassed. The boy didn't seem very happy, his tone carrying a chill. "It's nothing." Sarah blinked at me and whispered, "Don't take it to heart, Amanda. He's like this with everyone, always wearing that icy expression as if the whole world owes him 8 million. I pressed my lips together, unsure of what to say, but the boy in the front seat spoke coolly. "Sarah, shut up unless you want me to tell my brother about your failed exam." Sarah stuck her tongue out at him. But just as she was about to retort, she noticed the blood still trickling down my calf. Amanda, what happened to your leg? Why is there so much blood?" I wanted to say, "It's nothing serious," but Uncle Sarah immediately said to Kevin, "Go to the hospital." After arriving at the hospital, the doctor carefully cleaned the wound on my leg and prescribed some medication, while Sarah went to get the medicine. Uncle and I waited in the lobby. The hall was crowded, with almost no place to sit. My legs ached faintly from standing too long, so I had to lean on one foot to the side. Just then, an arm suddenly reached out in front of me. I looked up in surprise at my uncle, who tilted his head slightly, avoiding my gaze, his tone carrying a hint of awkwardness. "You can lean on me." I didn't feel the slightest bit embarrassed and thanked him frankly before taking his arm. After a while like this, he suddenly spoke again. "Amanda, do you really not remember me?" Under the light, I could finally see the entire face of the young uncle from the Smith family. His eyebrows and eyes looked like an artist's meticulously carved masterpiece, exquisite and perfect, yet those pitch-black pupils seemed incapable of reflecting any light. Always exuding an air of aloofness, I carefully searched my memories, only to realize that apart from Sarah, there seemed to be no other connection between him and me. Moreover, Sarah rarely mentioned her family, and I only learned tonight that her uncle was so young. So, I looked at him with some confusion. The young man lowered his eyes, seemingly a bit disappointed, and said, "Blue High School, third debater for the opposition." Like a sudden revelation, it dawned on me. Last year, when I represented our school at the debate competition held at Blue High School, our team, No. 1 High, happened to face the host team, Blue. Their third debater didn't speak much, but every word he said hit the mark. Naturally, I didn't back down either, and in the end, that debate turned into a showdown between the two of us. I remember, the third debater's name was, I tentatively called out to him, Grant. The young man finally showed a smile, as if the ice and snow had just begun to melt. Yet I couldn't bring myself to smile, because I suddenly remembered that dream. Grant seems to be my future cheating partner. When the Smith uncle and nephew sent me home, Sarah pulled me aside with great concern. "Amanda, what on earth happened between you and Jasper?" I thought again of Jasper running away with Megan, and my heart ached as if pricked by needles. I forced a smile at Sarah and told her it was nothing, but only I knew. I had begun to feel a sense of crisis toward Megan. whom I had never paid much attention to before. Perhaps it was the rain, but that night, I came down with a high fever. In a daze, I had another strange dream. The gloomy room was devoid of even a sliver of sunlight. As I lay collapsed on the floor, I watched in despair as Jasper, clearly more mature than he is now, walked away. After what felt like an eternity, someone pulled me up. Their hands were noticeably smaller than mine, yet their palms were incredibly warm. She took me downstairs and pushed me straight into someone's arms. That person's embrace was filled with a faint scent of oranges, and for some reason, this fragrance inexplicably made me feel at ease. When I woke up again, 2 days had already passed. My mother was by my side, her eyes full of worry. Only after I said I was fine did she relax, then handed me the porridge she had prepared. As I was eating, I suddenly noticed a beautifully wrapped box on the bedside table. My mother told me, "I don't know what's gotten into you all." That day, after you came back and collapsed, Jasper showed up right after, looking completely disheveled. When he found out you had a fever, he stayed by your bedside all night to take care of you, refusing to leave no matter who tried to make him. This box was left by him. He said it's your birthday gift. I remained silent, saying nothing, while my mother was washing the dishes. I opened the box and saw an exquisitely crafted necklace inside. The crystal swan on the necklace shimmered under the refraction of light. This was a necklace I had my eye on when I went out with Jasper last time, but in the end, I didn't buy it because the price was too high. I remember I didn't show much interest in it at the time, just secretly glanced at it a few more times. So, how did Jasper know? The next day, as soon as I stepped out, I saw Jasper standing at my doorstep. He cautiously smiled at me and then handed me a cup of soy milk, but I didn't take it. Instead, I walked past him straight downstairs without giving him a single glance. Jasper quickly caught up with me and tried to take my backpack. Of course, I wouldn't hand my bag over to him, so the two of us ended up tugging at it right there on the street. In a fit of anger, I simply let go, and Jasper, caught off guard, fell straight onto his backside. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. As soon as Jasper saw me laugh, he scrambled up and moved closer to me. Softly, he said, "I'm sorry, Amanda, it was my fault. I shouldn't have left you behind that day, and I definitely shouldn't have missed you calling out to me. I'm so sorry, so sorry. If you're really angry, just hit me." By the end, his expression even turned a little pitiful. "Just don't ignore me. I can't stand it when you ignore me." I studied him for a long moment before replying coolly, "But I also saw you hugging Megan." Jasper immediately grew frantic, tugging at my sleeve. He insisted she was really scared. So I just wanted to comfort her. I swear I have no feelings for her at all. Seeing my expression grow increasingly cold, Jasper grabbed my hand again, his tone pleading. "I was really wrong, Amanda. You know, the one I've always liked is you. The one I want to marry is also you." I froze, because this was the first time Jasper had said these words to me. In the past, although we had an unspoken understanding of our relationship, we were still missing a real confession. I had always wanted to hear him say he liked me with my own ears, but now that I finally heard it, I didn't feel as happy as I had imagined. It's probably still because of what happened that day. I sighed and ignored him. Turning to leave, Jasper followed behind me, carrying my backpack. It was the first time we didn't roughhouse on our way to school. When I arrived at the school gate, I saw Sarah just getting out of the car, noticing the strange atmosphere between me and Jasper. She wisely chose not to ask any questions. I took her arm, but just as the car door slammed shut, I caught a glimpse of Grant sitting inside. His gaze was still icy, especially when he noticed Jasper beside me, his displeasure practically overflowing. Suddenly, I grew curious. How on earth did the future me and Grant reach the point of needing to elope? Time flies by. Jasper and I seem to have returned to our old dynamic. Perhaps it's because we've been together since childhood, already blending into each other's daily lives. Breaking away isn't so easy. However, I can clearly feel that my fondness for Jasper is fading bit by bit. When exactly did I become aware of it? Probably around the time Megan stopped coming to school for a long while. I noticed Jasper often staring blankly toward the classroom door during breaks, instinctively searching for someone's figure after basketball games, and even absent-mindedly writing Megan's name on paper. Yet after writing it, he would angrily crumple the paper into a ball and throw it into the trash. Habits are truly terrifying things. For instance, I've grown accustomed to Jasper always being by my side, and now Jasper has gotten used to Megan following him around. Unable to be shaken off, watching him struggle in confusion. I really want to tell him, if he cares so much, he should just go find her. Moreover, my feelings aren't some cheap commodity. Once Jasper has exhausted them all, I'll turn and leave without a second thought. Though I thought so, I still felt a pang of sadness in my heart. The change happened one afternoon. At the time, I was reading under the gardenia tree by the school playground when Jasper came to me in anger. In my memory, he rarely got angry with me, and the few times he did were only because I had ignored his advice and hurt myself. But this time was different. It was because of Megan. Jasper threw Megan's diary at my feet and demanded, "Amanda, why did you go and say those things to her?" He looked at me with utter disappointment. "I've already explained to you. I don't like her. Megan has already kept her distance from me. So why did you have to humiliate her behind her back?" I quietly watched Jasper's outburst, then picked up the diary, but as I kept reading, I burst out laughing. Megan said that not only did I shame her behind her back for shamelessly chasing after Jasper, but I also instigated others to bully her. She even mentioned that time we met alone, when I told her to go back and do her homework. She wrote, "A single careless remark from someone standing high above makes the mud already trapped in darkness feel even more ashamed of itself." Perhaps I was never meant to live in this world to begin with. I tossed the notebook to Jasper and asked calmly, "Do you really believe what she said?" Jasper leaned against the tree, smiling sarcastically. "Does believing or not even matter anymore? Amanda, Megan has depression. Who would joke about something like that?" I didn't say a word but stepped forward and slapped Jasper directly. Jasper was stunned for a moment. When he regained his composure, he gripped my wrist tightly and said, "Amanda, if you've done something wrong, you have to admit it. I've always indulged your little tantrums before, but this is different. This is a matter of life and death. Come on, you're going with me to apologize to Megan." I tried to shake my hand free but couldn't, so I simply used my other hand to slap him again. It wasn't me who did those things, believe it or not, but asking me to apologize to her, not in this lifetime. Turning away, tears fell uncontrollably. How did things even come to this? Jasper started visiting Megan's house every day, claiming he was doing it on my behalf to take care of her and apologize. I felt nauseous and almost threw up when I heard it. Jasper, I know him too well. He was just using me as an excuse to finally have a legitimate reason to see Megan. Jasper lives right above me. Occasionally, I'd run into him at the stairwell on my way to school, and each time, he'd look at me as if he had something to say but held back. I knew it was his way of trying to reconcile, but I thought he was being too idealistic, unwilling to let go of Megan yet reluctant to part with me either. Absolutely ridiculous. That day, I was at home solving practice problems, but my phone kept buzzing incessantly. I opened the messages to find numerous photos of Jasper and Megan sent from the other side. In the photos, Jasper was smiling tenderly at Megan, his gaze carrying an affection he himself hadn't even noticed. As for Megan, it seemed as if she knew the photo would be seen by me. From an angle Jasper couldn't see, she provocatively smiled at the camera. "So, where exactly does she seem to have depression?" My fingers gripped the phone tightly, still waiting for the person on the other end to speak. Fortunately, the other side quickly sent another message. "Mom, say goodbye to your 17-year-old sincerity. Next, I will tell Jasper a truth, and he will leave you completely. It's Josephine." I didn't pay too much attention, just curious. How terrible must the future me be, for Josephine to go as far as disappearing herself just to come back and stop me from being with Jasper. But her efforts were not in vain. The outcome was truly going to be as she wished. Yet, whenever I think about Josephine disappearing, my heart always aches dully. Could it really be the blood ties at play? Josephine works with remarkable efficiency. The next day after school, Jasper pulled me into an empty classroom. Of course, besides him and me, Josephine and Megan were also there. Jasper didn't mince words. With reddened eyes, he confronted me directly. "Amanda, when we were kids spending summer vacations in the countryside, and I accidentally fell into that deep pit, who really saved me back then?" I froze for a moment before realizing he was referring to that incident. Back then, Jasper had just started middle school when he got into a car accident on his way to school, leaving him unable to stand for a long time. During that period, his temper became increasingly volatile and erratic. The slightest frustration would send him into fits of throwing things around, so no one wanted to get close to him anymore, including Uncle James and Aunt James. They avoided him whenever possible, but I was just foolish enough to believe that Jasper was simply too heartbroken, and that as long as I stayed by his side to help him stand up again, he would eventually return to the gentle Jasper I once knew. So, I endured his bad temper and started accompanying him through rehabilitation training every day. Sometimes, I'd even tell him jokes to cheer him up, of course. I also made sure to explain the lessons our teachers had covered in school every day. During that time, I even took notes in duplicate. But Jasper still wore a gloomy expression. It wasn't until summer vacation when we went to stay at Jasper's grandmother's house in the countryside. I remember, for some reason, he insisted on going out alone in his wheelchair that time, but as evening approached and there was still no sign of him returning, I finally grew anxious and went out to look for him, only to find him collapsed beside a deep pit. I hurriedly called Jasper's name, and he finally woke up groggily, after realizing it was me in front of him. He hugged me with reddened eyes. "I'll listen to you and live well." At this moment, Jasper was still looking at me painfully, wanting an answer. I said, "I don't know. At the time, I only found you lying beside the deep pit." Megan, however, looked at me with tears in her eyes. "You're clearly lying. You deceived Jasper. If it weren't for you, how could Jasper and I have missed so many years together? I thought he always remembered me." I looked at them coldly, enunciating each word. "Let me say it again. I truly don't know who saved him." Jasper woke up on his own and said nothing. "How would I know what happened to him?" With a hint of mockery, I added, "Besides, I never claimed to have saved him. Whatever he imagined is his own business. I, Amanda, would never stoop to stealing someone else's things." "Enough," Jasper finally snapped, his face filled with disappointment as he stared at me. Amanda, all these years, it turns out I've been loving the wrong person." I remained silent for a long time before suddenly laughing. "Jasper, I'm really curious. If even a stray dog had happened to save you back then, would you have fallen for it too? That would make your affection pretty cheap, wouldn't it? So cheap that he doesn't even deserve me." Josephine was right. It's time I said goodbye to the sincerity of my 17-year-old self. In the end, Jasper left, dragging a sobbing Megan with him. As for me, I leaned wearily against the wall, my mind in complete chaos. A soft gasp suddenly sounded, and I immediately turned around to see Josephine, forgotten by everyone, standing in the corner, her nose bleeding profusely. I was so frightened that I wanted to call for emergency help, but she pressed down on my hand to stop me, helpless. I had no choice but to take her to the bathroom for a quick cleanup, after leaving the school gate. I watched Josephine standing there in a daze, feeling an indescribable ache in my heart, as if guided by some unseen force. I walked back to her. "Want to stay at my place tonight?" I asked directly, but she hesitated in her reply. Still, thankfully, she agreed in the end. Back at home, my mother had already prepared a table full of food and was sitting on the sofa with my father, waiting for me to return. I told them Josephine was my classmate and would be staying here tonight. They both said it was no problem and even held Josephine's hand the whole time, clearly fond of her. It was rare to see Josephine, usually so sharp and prickly, looking so docile and quiet. Suddenly, my mother exclaimed in surprise, looking at it this way. "Josephine's nose and mouth actually resemble Amanda's a bit, and that little mole between the nostrils. Amanda used to have one too, but she had it removed." I froze for a moment, then followed their gaze toward Josephine, who was also looking at me with a complicated expression. At first, I only noticed how Josephine resembled Jasper, but I hadn't realized that she also bore some resemblance to me. This feeling was indescribable, to think that in this world, apart from my parents, there was actually someone else who shared my blood, afraid that my mother and the others might notice something amiss. I took Josephine back to my room right after dinner, perhaps because she was sleeping beside me. Tonight I had an endlessly long dream. In the dream, Jasper and I got married. He still doted on me as he did when we were children, treating me like some fragile treasure. We shared many sweet moments, truly as I had once imagined, forever in love. But it wasn't until we had our first post-marriage argument. The reason was his disapproval of me returning to work after giving birth to our daughter. We fought fiercely that time, even alarming both sets of parents. Because of this, Jasper didn't come home to stay for many days, yet in the end, he was the first to lower his head and apologize. He told me sorrowfully that he didn't want me to exhaust myself, having to care for our daughter while also working outside. He said he was fully capable of supporting me, and that I only needed to be his princess. I still softened my heart and ultimately agreed to him, completely returning to the family. At first, Jasper would always come home on time and even bring me various gifts. But gradually, he came back later and later, even carrying unfamiliar perfume scents on him. I grew suspicious and decided to make a surprise visit to their company one day, only to see Megan holding Jasper's arm, laughing and chatting. In the dream, Megan had completely shed her high school timidity. She removed her thick glasses and wore delicate makeup, appearing confident and poised. When they saw me, both of them flustered and moved slightly farther apart. Megan greeted me, but I ignored her and instead looked at Jasper. Jasper visibly panicked. After shooing Megan out of the office, he took my hand and tried to explain. If Jasper had initially felt some guilt toward me, over time, he gradually grew impatient with me, even comparing me to Megan. He said I wasn't as strong as Megan, not as confident and composed as Megan. During that time, my mother happened to be hospitalized due to illness, and the stress was overwhelming. His words made me break down on the spot. It was also around that time that I met Grant. He was my mother's attending physician. He told me that Amanda is just Amanda. There's no need to compare her to others. Just this one sentence pulled me back from the edge. At the end of the dream, I saw Grant reaching out to me, saying, "I've always been here. Just turn around, and you'll see me." This dream felt incredibly real, making me start to believe it might be my somewhat tragic future. When I woke up, my face still bore the traces of dried tears. Looking up, I saw Josephine sitting by the table, lost in thought as she gazed at a photo on the table, her chin resting on her hand. In the photo, I was beaming brightly, holding my parents' hands. "Josephine, why did you lie to me?" I suddenly spoke up. Josephine was startled, and after regaining her composure, she stared at me in a daze. I smiled bitterly. "But it was Jasper who cheated." Josephine sprang to her feet. "How did you know?" Instead of answering her, I looked into her slightly panicked eyes and said word by word, "Why did you really come back? Do you hate me that much? You'd rather disappear yourself just to let Jasper and Megan be together?" Josephine lowered her head, making it hard to see her expression, but her voice trembled slightly. "Yeah, I hate you the most." With that, she rushed out of the room and ran away. My fingers clenched until they ached. I really couldn't understand why she did that. Jasper and Megan are together now. When I heard the news, I was attending Sarah's birthday party at the Smith family's house, casually making up an excuse. I left the lively front hall. The pitying looks from everyone made me extremely uncomfortable. Indeed, who would have thought that Megan, whom they once looked down upon, actually managed to win the heart of the school's heartthrob, even though Jasper already had me as his childhood friend, before I knew it. I had arrived at the Smith family's small garden, only to coincidentally see Grant sitting on a swing reading a book. The breeze brushed through the boy's jet-black bangs, revealing his usually calm eyes. On his lap was also a box of candies, which by the looks of it, he had already eaten more than half. I couldn't help but smile. This young master unexpectedly had quite a contrasting charm. Perhaps hearing the noise, Grant looked up, when he noticed me staring at his candy with a smile. His ears suddenly turned red, though he still feigned composure. "Want some?" I nodded, took the candy from his hand, and casually sat down on the swing beside him. Suddenly, I thought of that dream. I asked him, if in the future, I become completely ordinary, lose my spark, will anyone still like me? I knew my question was somewhat inexplicable, but Grant still answered me very seriously. "Of course they will." My heartbeat invalid quickened, and I asked again, "Why?" Grant smiled. That smile like the dazzling starlight flickering endlessly in the night. I'll never forget the first time I saw Amanda, her confident, composed eyes. During that debate, even though our school was clearly at a disadvantage, she stubbornly kept presenting her arguments. Though she narrowly lost, she won everyone's applause. I've always believed that someone like her could never become ordinary. Even if she faces temporary setbacks, she'll eventually regroup and reclaim her own brilliance. Grant looked into my eyes, his tone gentle. "But actually, no matter how many people love you, it's never as important as loving yourself first. Never doubt yourself because of what others say." My eyes grew warm, yet my heart suddenly felt clear and open. Gazing up at the azure sky, I softly said, "Thank you, Grant." Besides the gift, I also invited Sarah to the amusement park. The two girls had a wild day of fun and were in an exceptionally good mood. On the way home, Kevin and Grant came to pick us up, but Sarah had to leave early for a private birthday party her parents had specially prepared for her. I didn't want to trouble them further to take me home, but Grant suddenly placed the rabbit headband he had bought on my head. "Let's go." "It's no trouble at all," but as soon as I reached the downstairs of my home, I saw Jasper and Megan beside him. The two of them were being all lovey-dovey, talking closely, and just as their lips were about to touch, Jasper suddenly noticed me. Somehow, he immediately pushed Megan away, momentarily flustered. Megan's expression instantly changed, but she quickly looped her arm through Jasper's, looking at me with a face full of defiance. What a coincidence, Amanda. She glanced at Grant beside me, then froze, her eyes filling with complex emotions again. Found someone new so quickly. Well, that saves you from obsessing over other people's boyfriends all the time. Hearing her words, Jasper frowned deeply, his tone inexplicably turning cold. Amanda, who is this guy? I didn't want to engage with them, but their behavior was truly disgusting. None of your business. And stop calling me Amanda from now on. I raised an eyebrow at Megan, whose face was twisted with anger. I wouldn't want your girlfriend to get upset. With that, I turned to leave, but Jasper blocked my path, demanding an explanation. Grant immediately stepped in front of me, standing a full half-head taller than Jasper. His intimidating aura was palpable as he glared at Jasper with unfriendly eyes. Jasper could no longer stop me, only watching me unwillingly. Meanwhile, Grant flicked the little bunny ears on my head and chuckled softly. Go on up, little bunny. My face flushed inexplicably, and I hurried upstairs. That evening, Jasper knocked on my door. Outside the door, he wore his usual smile and spoke in a light tone. My parents aren't home tonight. Can I come over for dinner? In the past, I would have happily pulled him inside, but now, just looking at his face fills me with irritation. Jasper, don't you think this is ridiculous? Don't tell me you're with Megan now but still can't let go of me. Jasper kept his smile, though a flicker of pain flashed in his eyes. Amanda, so we can't even be friends anymore. No, I refused bluntly, then slammed the door shut hard. But just a moment later, I opened the door again. Jasper's previously dim eyes suddenly lit up. He was about to say something when he saw me throw a box at his feet. These are all the things you've given me over the years. Take them back, and don't bother returning what I gave you. I don't want them anymore. Jasper stared blankly at the items on the ground, then bent down to pick up the topmost box. Inside was a crystal necklace, its swan pendant still glimmering. He asked me, what about this? Don't you want it either? You loved it so much. I looked at him calmly and said, it's different now. It's tainted. The Jasper who used to understand my thoughts with just one glance is gone forever. I never told him that I actually noticed he'd been secretly eating instant noodles for a month to save money. So he'll never know how much I wanted to grow old with him back then. As the door closed, I saw Jasper clutching that necklace tightly, his face full of confusion and pain. My life seems to have returned to its original state, except there's no Jasper now, but there's a Grant. Grant would give me a ride home when picking up Sarah, and he'd also invite me to study at the library on weekends. Finally, when Grant invited me to the library again, I couldn't help but ask him, Grant, are you trying to pursue me? Otherwise, given his personality, he probably wouldn't have taken the initiative to invite the same person so actively. His eyes revealed confusion. Yeah, wasn't it obvious? I was speechless. Whose idea of a date is always at the library, and every time he seriously debated different solutions to math problems with me, it only made me think he saw me as an academic rival. I sighed, stood on tiptoe, and whispered in his ear, how about we go to the beach together next week? I heard there'll be fireworks at night. Grant's face immediately turned red, and he pursed his lips tightly, nodding vigorously. I finally smiled with satisfaction. As soon as Grant brought me back home, a heavy rain began to fall. Gazing at the dense curtain of rain, I thought to myself, it's been a long time since I last saw Josephine, or perhaps, is she still here? A sense of loss washed over me, tinged with a faint bitterness. Amanda. A voice suddenly came from behind. I turned around and saw Jasper. He wore a sorrowful expression, yet his eyes gleamed with joy. Amanda, Megan and I broke up. I froze for a moment, then replied indifferently, that has nothing to do with me. You didn't need to come tell me. With that, I turned to go upstairs, but Jasper suddenly wrapped his arms around me from behind. A faint scent of alcohol lingered in the air. Frowning in disgust, I said, Jasper, let go. Jasper's voice was choked with tears. Amanda, I was wrong. Only now do I realize that it's always been you I love. I can't get used to life without you by my side. Can you forgive me? By the end, he was already sobbing uncontrollably, yet I remained unmoved, simply stomping hard on his foot, seizing the moment when he let go in pain. I stood on the stairs, looking down at him with disdain. Honestly, Jasper, your behavior now just strikes me as sick and disgusting. The thought of what he and Megan would do in the future filled me with deep hatred toward him. Jasper, perhaps I should even thank you for leaving me. Without another glance at his grief-stricken face, I turned and walked away, yet, by chance, I caught sight of a familiar figure amidst the pouring rain. I eagerly tried to see her face clearly, but in the blink of an eye, she was gone again. I thought with a bitter smile, have I been thinking about her too much lately? Jasper was caught by the debt collectors from Megan's family. They were determined to take revenge on him, so they struck hard. He was struck in the head by the opponent and went straight into the operating room. When my mother told me the news, I was discussing with Sarah where to go for summer vacation, looking at the red light above the operating room. I remembered the message he had sent me just a few hours earlier. Amanda, summer is almost here. How about we go to the beach together? Since that time I met him, he's been messaging me every day, but I never reply, even blocked him. He doesn't know I already have someone to go to the beach with. Jasper's parents sat crying on the bench outside the operating room, while my parents comforted them. Also shedding tears from time to time, I stared blankly at the hospital's white walls. Silently hoping Jasper would be okay. I may hate him, but I don't wish for his death. Suddenly, at the end of the long corridor, I saw Josephine dressed in a white dress. I walked toward her, and she took my hand, revealing a gentle smile I had never seen before. Mom, today is my birthday. Could you make me a bowl of noodles again? I froze for a moment, looking into her somewhat expectant eyes, and ultimately agreed. After leaving the hospital, I borrowed the kitchen of a nearby small restaurant and quickly made a bowl of noodles for Josephine. The hazy steam blurred her features, making it impossible for me to discern her expression, but she suddenly spoke up. I was the one who revealed Jasper's location to those people. She lifted her head. It's my fault that Jasper is lying in the hospital now, his life hanging by a thread. I suddenly turned to look at her. My mind flooded with too many questions I wanted to ask. Weren't you always helping Jasper? Weren't you always hating me? So why did you do something like this now? But in the end, I just felt utterly exhausted. Everything Josephine did, every word she said, it always seemed beyond my understanding. Perhaps I had expended too much energy today, for I actually fell asleep with my head on the desk, and what's more, I dreamed of the future, something I hadn't done in a long time. This time, it was all about my daughter, Josephine. I saw her as a newborn. With big grape-like eyes, smiling happily at me. I saw her at 5 years old, when Jasper forgot my birthday, holding a cake made of Play-Doh and singing, "Happy Birthday," to me. I saw her at 10 years old, raising her eyebrows at a parent-teacher meeting and proudly saying, "I have the best mommy in the whole world." I saw her at 13, when Jasper learned it wasn't me who saved him back then and slapped me for Megan's sake. She would fiercely point a knife at her father. Finally, it was her at 15. She went to the hospital to find Grant, looked at him seriously, and said, "If you ever treat my mom badly in the future, I won't let you off." Grant, in his white coat, didn't laugh at the girl's slightly childish words. Instead, he bent down and held out his pinky finger. "I got it. Then let's pinky swear." Josephine reached out her hand to pinky swear with him, smiling brightly. After leaving the hospital, she deliberately found a secluded spot and took out an old-fashioned phone. "All right, if you can really take me back to the past, then take me to before my dad confessed to my mom." Miraculously, the phone spoke. "As you wish. But why didn't you just tell your mother about the future directly, instead of choosing to slander her to push their separation?" Josephine was dazed for a long time before finally smiling. "You don't understand. My mother is the kindest, most soft-hearted person in the world. If I hadn't made her dislike me from the start, she would have stopped me. She might even have walked the same painful path all over again, for my sake. Now, at last, I know Josephine's greatest secret. That is, she loves me. She has always loved me." My tears suddenly welled up, and I wanted to reach out and grab the daughter in that illusion, but I could only watch helplessly as she drifted further away, choking back sobs. I gazed at her increasingly transparent figure. "Josephine, would you still be willing to be Mom's daughter in the next life?" She looked at me with an innocent smile. "Of course I do." Josephine might not be a kind girl, but to her mother, she's always been a good daughter. I shook my head and finally managed to force a smile. "I'm sorry, and thank you." I woke from the dream, looked at the empty seat across from me, and burst into tears. I know that this temporal journey of love has come to a complete end. The doctor said that although Jasper's life was saved, it would be very difficult for him to wake up in the future. They told me that when he was rushed to the hospital covered in blood, He was still tightly clutching that crystal swan necklace in his hand. As I listened, I just stared blankly at the sky for a while. In the distance, Sarah waved at me, smiling as she said, "Amanda, let's go to the beach together," beside her. Grant also looked at me with gentle eyes. I stood up and ran toward them. Let's go. The following summer, along with all my fellow high school seniors, welcomed our graduation. As the height of summer faded, I entered the university campus together with them. 4 years later, I graduated with honors from the law school and smoothly became an outstanding lawyer. Grant and I also got our marriage certificate, much to the satisfaction of both sets of parents. My greatest joy in daily life is teasing Sarah into calling me Auntie every time she chases after me to hit me, yelling about when exactly I boarded Grant's pirate ship. In the 3rd year of our marriage, I got pregnant. Grant respects my opinions very much. She says I can continue working if I want to, or stay at home if I prefer, without blushing or his heart racing. He told me, at worst, I'll quit, anyway. The company has Sarah now. I'd be more than happy to stay home and be your personal house husband. When Sarah overheard this, the uncle and nephew pair caused another uproar. When I was 7 months pregnant, my mother told me Jasper had woken up. She said, "After all, you've been together for so many years. Go see him when you have the time." I remained silent for a moment, then nodded. Over the weekend, Grant and I went to the hospital, where we unexpectedly ran into Megan, whom we hadn't seen in a long time. I remember that back then, the school had no choice but to expel Megan because her family's creditors kept causing disturbances on campus. Looking at Megan now, I saw her wearing a faded old outfit, holding a little boy's hand, her expression weary. When she saw me, she still wore the same resentful expression as before. "Amanda," she clenched her fists unwillingly. Why do you get all the luck? Why aren't you the one down on your luck now?" I found it quite amusing. At the time when she needed to work the hardest, she wasted her studies competing for Jasper's attention. Now that her life has taken a turn for the worse, she blames others for their good fortune. I didn't think there was any need to pay attention to her, so I took Grant's hand and walked away. When I arrived at Jasper's hospital room, I saw him staring blankly at the sunlight outside the window. Time had left many marks on his face. But the gloom in his eyes suddenly vanished when he saw me. With a trembling voice, he called out to me, "Amanda." I have completely let go of the past and nodded at him, but just as the corners of his lips began to lift, he saw Grant behind me, and then, he noticed my protruding belly. Jasper looked at me sorrowfully, for a long, long time. Finally, he closed his eyes and whispered softly, "Amanda, I wish you happiness." I touched my belly and gave him a genuine smile from the heart. "Thank you." 3 more months passed, and I gave birth to a daughter. Her eyes were as bright as stars, tiny and curled up in Grant's arms, softening the usually cold and stern man's expression without him realizing it. But when I noticed the small mole on the bridge of her nose, my eyes suddenly welled up with tears. After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section.